Trigger warning. Some of the stuff I want to talk about does have to do with abuse, and I come from a line of abuse. It's not just my experience, it's my family's experience growing up to a result of colonialism and the domestication in all of our histories to an extent. And I had a lot of abuse. I ran away from home when I was 15 and lived on the streets. And that's where I found the punk scene. And that was my doorway into politics, into anarchism. That was what got me there. And I had to go through a lot of really damaging experiences, and I didn't have language for any of them. I grew up in a really patriarchal home. A lot of abuse in my home, a lot of alcoholism, and I love my family. I think that they're good people who did the best that they could. And it's interesting, God, I don't even know what I want to say. What's challenging for me the most probably in trying to raise kids in any kind of subculture is the way that people don't really address the kind of abuse that they've lived through in their lives and themselves. And I think somebody in this room talked to the way that we unconsciously will kind of pass that on to each other. And my struggle has been, as a parent, to I can't do this right now. I'm too brain dead after sitting up here so long. Yeah, I can't do this right now. Can somebody else go before me? Can I go for a walk?
Yeah.
Thanks.
So, would you like to introduce Tilda? Sure. Tilda Klein is a mother and a grandmother and founded the Detroit Workers' World Party. Is a leader in the BAM committee in the 1960s and current labor organizer and does work with anti-police brutality.
Okay, I had this thing opened up and I just disappeared on here. Just 1 second. There it is. So I did write some stuff out just because I feel like I write better than I talk sometimes. But really, again, I'm also talking from a different era, different struggles than some of you are dealing with now, but I think there's a historical context that some of you might appreciate, and also there's a lot of current relevance too, so I'll just kind of talk about it a little bit. So my oldest daughter, she was born on the day that President Nixon was forced to resign, which was August 9th in 1974. I mean, she's 38 years old right now. But anyways, I still have the newspaper with a banner headline about Nixon resigning somewhere. And I thought, gee, wow, what a sign, my daughter's born the day that Nixon resigned, that's got to mean something. She's going to be a fighter, a winner in the struggle. How could I ever have predicted the conversation that I just had to have with her last week? It was to get approval to share with my 11-year-old granddaughter, whose birthday is on Malcolm X's birthday, not that I'm really into these birthday things, but it just happened. So I had to get approval to share with my 11-year-old granddaughter about who her grandmother, me, it really is, and what I do when I'm not at work and when I'm not with them. So never occurred to me that this would happen, that I had to, be able to talk to them first about talking to my own grandchildren about who I am. So that's right, my own granddaughters. The other one is 9. Have no idea that their granny, as they call me, is a communist revolutionary who helped shut down the Port of Oakland on 3 different occasions. They don't know that the first demonstration I ever went on was the March on the Pentagon in 1967 against the war in Vietnam. They don't know about a whole bunch of stuff that I've done. I led the White Support Coalition for the first Black Action Movement strike at the University of Michigan, where we shut the whole university down. We threw open the doors of huge lecture halls full of students and drummed and sang and chanted until every last student filed out of the classroom. They don't know I was in the streets fighting the cops in New Haven, Connecticut in 1970 to defend Erica Huggins and the Black Panther 8. Or how I shouted, "Tear down the walls," at DeHoka, which is the Detroit House of Correction, in the early 70s. They certainly don't know that I was a leader of the Ann Arbor SDS in '69, and I was a founding member of the Detroit branch of Workers' World Party in 1970, who, by the way, us women in, I think it was 1971 or 1970, sometime in that point, threw out all the men in the Workers' World Party in Detroit. We let them join back a few months later after they had learned a few things. They don't know I was the editor of the Red Times, which published headlines such as "Eat Lead Chrysler," when a black Chrysler worker shot a black foreman over oppressive conditions on the line in the time period of Drum, which was the Dodge Revolutionary Movement, or Dodge Revolutionary Movement. They never asked about the scar on the bridge of my nose, which came from a cop's hand jamming my wire-rimmed glasses into it with his hand as I did a dumb thing and used both my hands to grab his stick instead of just one of them when he was about to crack the skull of another protester at an anti-Klan demonstration in Dearborn, Michigan. They also don't know that their Aunt Julie, my other daughter, who is 33, who they love dearly, is also a communist revolutionary. My daughter Julie, who lives in Brooklyn, is a public defender, the vice president of her union, and an active member of Workers' World Party in New York. So that's okay, right? I raised one revolutionary, one liberal. So, well, I love them both. And I have two granddaughters, of course, who I love, and I didn't decide to have children in order to breed the Revolutionary Army. Organizing has got to be a more efficient way to get people in the struggle than that. You can't help but want your kids to share the values of the things that are important to you, however. So why did I decide to have children, and how did it affect my political involvement and outlook, and what kind of support did I need and get from my comrades? What was their father's role, and how did my political activity affect my kids? First of all, so why? I just really had a strong urge to be a mother. To have a child had nothing to do with politics, just life. I wanted to be a mother. However, I felt guilty for allowing myself the luxury or indulgence of having a child at that time. It would take away time and energy from the struggle, possibly making vulnerable and the desire to protect them. So when I was pregnant with my first daughter, Molly, I was working at a Chrysler stamping plant in Detroit as a spot welder. We had an hourly production standard, and if we made our production early, we could break until the next hour. So not uncommonly, my coworker and I had developed a rhythm together where if we busted ass, we could get ourselves a 15-minute break every hour. So I started to get morning sickness, but wasn't showing yet, so I would run off to barf in the bathroom. My coworker, because he was getting shorted on his lousy 15-minute an hour break, decided to complain to the foreman. So the foreman told me I had to get a pass from him to go to first aid next time I was feeling sick. So I said, yeah, sure. Next time it happened, I barfed on his desk while waiting for the pass. And he never bothered me again. So when she was born, They didn't even have rooming in at the hospital. So I had to check myself out early just to be with her. But back to the guilt thing, we had a Workers' World Party conference in New York City less than a month after she was born, and I felt I really had to go. So I left her with some very good friends for the weekend. I don't think I ever told her about that. I would never do something like that again. I felt so guilty for leaving her and worried about her the whole time. So I should never have felt I needed to go to that conference. Don't remember what the urgency was. My only memory is that I left my daughter when she was less than a month old. So breastfeeding was just beginning to be really thought about seriously at that time, and most everyone bottle fed their babies. I'd read something about it, or more than something, but we decided that her father and I could more evenly share the parenthood experience if I didn't breastfeed her, if she was bottle fed. So we did share the parenthood role as far as the physical responsibilities somewhat evenly back then, but there's something about the mother's role that doesn't get replaced no matter what. So by the time I had Julie, I was firmly committed to breastfeeding, and I nursed her until she was 2 years old. There's just no way to describe that bonding experience. But back to Molly, my oldest one. She was the first child of our Workers' World branch, and she got the love and attention of most everyone. My comrades would volunteer to babysit and take her places. We set up a child care area in our office with lots of toys and supplies. We had someone responsible for child care at all of our meetings, which were weekly, and advertised that on our meeting announcements. The male comrades participated fully in the child care responsibilities at the meetings, not collectively all the time or anything like that, but just at the meetings. I would take Molly and later Julie to a lot of demonstrations, and they generally liked to participate and chant with us, but as they got older, it became harder to drag them to meetings. They became reluctant to come, so we had to work out other arrangements at times. So one of us would sometimes stay home with them until they became old enough to stay home by themselves. When I was pregnant with Julie, the EEOC, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, had just made a ruling on treating pregnancy the same as any other disability in the workplace. Up until that time, companies could force a woman off the job if she was unable to do her regular job because she was pregnant, without paying her disability and without a guarantee that she would get the same job back when she was able to return to work. In union shops, like where I was at a UAW organized Chrysler plant, women only got 6 weeks pay for the recovery after birth, but no pay for any time off before the pregnancy. It was essentially treated as a voluntary leave. Well, when I got far enough along with my pregnancy and couldn't bend over the stock bins to pick up stock at the bottom of the bins, they tried to make me go home without pay for the rest of my pregnancy. Chrysler had a practice of allowing workers with other temporary disabilities to work light duty, like pushing brooms or other light jobs. And I had known about the recent EEOC decision or ruling, but my male union reps didn't know about it and weren't interested in finding out about it either. The ruling applied in this situation, saying that if they allowed someone with temporary weightlifting restrictions, for example, to push a broom instead of their regular job, they had to allow pregnant women to do it too. So I wound up in the unusual position of actually going to the UAW International for support over my local union UAW committeemen who were assigned to the Chrysler over me. Needless to say, I won to the anger of the committeemen who I showed up. Anyway, so I have to say that I don't believe that having children affected my political involvement in a negative way overall. There were periods in my life when I was less active, though I never withdrew from the struggle entirely at any point, but I think that was just life overall and the ups and downs of the struggle. Can't say that it wouldn't have happened anyway whether or not I had kids. Their father and I separated when the girls were 5 and 10 years old. He withdrew from the struggle within a year after that because of his new partner. He actually wanted to split the kids off, if you can imagine, taking Molly and leaving Julie with me. There was no way I was letting that happen. So we wound up with joint custody name, but physical custody was with me during the school week and with him on weekends. Molly chose not to go over to his place anymore by the time she was 16, but Julie continued to stay with him on weekends until they moved to Hawaii when she turned 15. Their choices in whether or not to spend time with their politically inactive dad clearly didn't play a role in where each of them landed politically later on. So, because it was Julie who spent more time with her dad that is the politically active one now. I just want to say that, you know, it's a tough period always, you know, as far as trying to, you know, raise kids in a political environment and, you know, struggling with often guilt in terms of, you know, what you do for them and what you do for the struggle. But, you know, I think everybody's just got to make their own choices and do what they feel. All I know is that, you know, I really am glad that I never pulled back from the struggle, and that, you know, there's maybe some resentment from my kids about it, but, you know, kids have resentment about what their parents do, no matter if you're in the struggle or not, you know. So you can't be a perfect parent, so that's about it.
We have questions for Tilda. I have one. Do you feel like even though you don't share politics with your oldest daughter, that, like, did you see signs of that, I guess, early on? And do you, aside from that, have a good relationship, or is it just around politics? I mean, I guess that's, but yeah, go ahead.
Sure. You know, it was really probably not till she got older, like middle college years, or she wound up going to medical school, that, you know, it was clear that she was going in a more liberal and less radical direction. You know, they did face a lot of different pressures. I mean, growing up in the public school environment and whatever, you know, that they had to deal with, and everybody deals with it in their own way. And she's very family focused right now, you know, and that's her thing, is family. You know, it's a difficult relationship when I can't go over there and share, you know, what I've been through during the week and what's going on in the struggle and whatever, and, you know, I have to stay kind of closed mouth when I go over there, and, you know, so it makes it tough. But you know, I see my grandkids every couple weeks. I moved out here from Detroit because I didn't want to be a long distance grandma. So, you know, because I spent most of my life in Detroit. So that's one of the main reasons I moved out here. But, you know, it'll work out.
Yeah. So if there are no more questions, are you?
Yes, I can.
Okay, great.
Good. Thank you. Sorry about that. I needed apples, apparently.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm a single mother of 3. My kids are 16, 14, and 11. 12. Just turned 12 yesterday.
Happy birthday.
And my kids are amazing. I love them so much. And I'm not just saying that because some of them are here. We had a really rough start. I was a teen parent. I came back to my family's home pregnant, and I had been away for almost a year. I'd come back and forth, but the longest stint without talking to my family at all, I think, was about 6 months. And, you know, they weren't happy with me. We had really strained relationships. I grew up in a house that was a party house, essentially. My parents let me do whatever I want. They were emotionally and physically abusive, and I have extensive abuse. But also there was a lot of love and a lot of caring too, and they did the best that they could with what they had, I think, which I also don't think it's an excuse, and it's not okay. So I did that. I had a hard time trying to navigate having a relationship with my family and their involvement, which I needed because I needed support, but not wanting to raise my kids the same way I was raised. And I've always been very analytical and was able to see the things that were not okay and use those to change my parenting model and parent differently. However, I was pretty beaten down as a parent, and that happens, I think, to all mothers in this culture, under capitalism and under patriarchy. Our reproductive labor is not valued, it's not seen as actual work, and it's a tremendous amount of work. A lot of people that I've organized with, by the time they're rolling out of bed from their last night's partying and whatever, by the time that's happening, I've already dealt with like 5 crises and have fed people and cleaned up messes, etc. And it's hard, it's really alienating. It becomes really hard to relate to people that you're working with. And, I was pretty active when I was in Tucson and got disheartened. I was treated really horrifically, actually, as a parent. I didn't have a lot of support. I had maybe 2 people that would support me and advocate for me as a parent, but there was no child care. It was male-dominated, and there was a lot of celebritizing of people. And there was another mother that was in our movement, but her partner was, an eco-celebrity, I'll say, and so people wanted to support her because of him, and he was a womanizer, he was very sexist, he cheated on his partner all the time, and yet there was a lot of support, and there wasn't a lot of support for me. In fact, I helped organize a gathering that was 3 hours away from our hometown, and one of the more important, quote-unquote, men in our group had taken on a lot of work and responsibility, and part of what he offered to do was to drive me and my kids to this mountainous region that was 3 hours away from home. And there was a lot of Freddies where we were, a lot of cops, a lot of heavy police presence, and we were trying to pack up and leave, and he decided that it wasn't necessary to give me and my 3 children a ride home, and my children were really young at the time. And that he was just going to leave us there because he didn't want to take 2 trips with all the stuff, and that I'd find another ride. And I had people from Texas and from California stay with me for 3 hours while I waited for somebody to come and pick us up. And this was never an issue in the group that I was organizing with. Like, nobody thought that this guy should be called out for this. Nobody advocated or stuck up for me. So that was a huge wake-up call for me. There's a few other things. I'm not going to give you my whole laundry list of unfortunate events that really, embittered me, but there was a lot. And so I gave up activism entirely. I didn't give up my politics. I love theory. Theory's really interesting to me. But raising 3 kids on my own is a full-time job that is not appreciated, it's not supported, and it's been really challenging. I love my kids, they're amazing people, they're really strong, and I do know their opinions, by and large, about my choices in politics, and we have really interesting, insightful debates about it. They don't agree with a lot of the things that I believe in, and that's okay, because they're their own people, and that's really important to me, that I let them be who they are and have their own minds. But I also lay down the law with them, actually, because to me, but I explain it to them, because it's like we live in this system, and this system will destroy them if they're not educated to what that is. And as some of the work that Diana does that I really admire is like supporting women that are incarcerated for taking care of themselves and trying to get out of bad situations. And I relate to that because the father of my children was very abusive to me and stalked me, and I had to go into hiding to get away from him, and that was really challenging, and really, really challenging. And I could see myself being in the position of these women, and I'm glad that I'm not. I'm really fortunate. So we've had a lot of struggle. I'm glad to live here. I took my kids out of school and we were homeless for 6 months to move here. I don't homeschool them. I tried that. It didn't work out very well. I haven't had the kind of support I needed, and then they ultimately chose to be in school. Now I have a lot more support. I have people that are there in time of crisis for me. I have people that will step up if anything happens to me legally. I got really excited about Occupy and started getting back involved in activism for a moment. And then after almost getting arrested with my eldest daughter and getting covered in pepper spray, and my son asking me not to anymore, I decided to take a step back for a while. And I'm still running into the same problems. It's the same stuff that I've heard in this room a lot already today. I guess the way I would describe it is a celebrity contest, an ego contest. I see a lot of people that are in these teams not because they care about what they're fighting for necessarily, and I can't necessarily speak for what people really care about, right? I don't know that, but to me, it seems like people are really interested in getting laid and getting wasted and having a lot of fun, and these same people I've heard put pressure on me to, like, you know, do this with my kids, do that with my kids. A lot of advice, unsolicited advice from people that aren't parents, and if I could say anything about that, my main thing that would be is just shut up, please. Like, if you don't have kids, you have no business telling parents. You might think you would do a great job, but you actually don't know how hard it is. It's the hardest job. It is so challenging day in, day out. You don't get to rest. You don't get to turn it off the way you do activism. You're actually there on the front lines every single day, every single night. Crisis comes up, you have to deal with it. And, you know, I mean, I came from an abuse history, and I don't want to pass that down to my kids. And certainly in some ways I have, and I'm in therapy constantly, and I am a big advocate for therapy or any kind of mental health support, and I don't like the mental health system at all. I think it's really screwed up. I hate the pharmaceutical companies. I also don't see a big push to make things better in that area, and I think there's a great need. And I think that another thing that there's a great need for, especially people that are wanting to tell parents how to parent, is maybe a need to actually come and see what parents' lives are about, and not just like that, you know, once a month or here and there, or I had a conversation with that mom and it seems kind of cool, but actually like come and see what it's actually like, and ask questions and learn about it and get to know the kids, but not like in this weird, like, you know, like trying to tell the kids how they should live their lives. I've had people offer to my kids that they should homeschool, which I think is great, except for that I don't have the support. And I've had people offer that to my kids, but then not really understand that that's actually a commitment where you have to actually do the work. And, you know, I'm sure, as you know, like that takes somebody being committed to actually teaching your child something and showing up for that whole experience, even if they don't want to. And that's what parenting is about, showing up, even when you don't want to, putting the needs of somebody else before your needs. And yeah, I'm really lucky. I have people that help me with crises now, and I have a lot of support, and they're people that I think are healthy and good people, so I feel really grateful for that. And another thing, really quick, if you do have parents in your groups and you're organizing with them, I would encourage you to ask them if they would want your support in time of crisis and what that would look like, rather than waiting for the crisis to happen and then being really reactionary, because that can cause a lot of problems and it can really take agency away from the parent. And that's really dangerous. That can be really dangerous for the kids, and it can be really traumatizing for the kids. So it's good to have plans and to think about those things, and like to also form relationships with the kids. I'm really grateful to my adult advocates who love my kids and are like really involved in their lives and really know them. That is so helpful. And yes, other things are helpful too when people do helpful things. I don't want to like knock people. Like when people's intentions are great and they want to like do things to be helpful, but it's really important to find out what those things can look like and what's actually helpful, I think. Thanks.
Next.
I'm really interested. I feel like there's a lot of silence around parents with mental health problems, mental health issues, and I'm wondering, I guess, if you have any resources. I know you said like having communities having community around you that is there before a crisis happens. But, I mean, aside from just building communities, I feel like that's something I'm really trying to do. But are there any other resources locally or like elsewhere that we could model here that can support parents who may experience mental health crises? Because like you said, like the needs of your children are there and they don't go away. And like if you're having the push-trauma stress meltdown and like you have to take care of somebody else, like you can't even take care of yourself, how do you do that?
Right. Yeah, I mean that's like a really big problem. And you know, I don't personally have a perfect answer for that, or a really good answer for that. I mean, I'm fortunate enough at this moment to have people that I feel safe calling and asking for help. And I don't always get the help that I need, and my kids and I have gone through a lot of hard things together. I feel like there's two parts to your question. When I've had meltdowns myself, and I've just like collapsed, or I've acted badly, or I've done things that I feel ashamed of with my kids, for me it's really important to talk to them about what's going on for me. And I don't mean like giving them way too much information about like what exactly is going on, but talking to them and like really allowing them to see the humanness of my experience. Because I mean, you know, one of the things that I heard said too is talking to kids, like, you know, they're obviously, I think it was you, like, the not dumbing a situation and like really talking to kids and trusting them to understand the information you give them. And, you know, looking for people that are able to hold space. Because I think that that's a big challenge. A lot of people can't emotionally handle holding space, I've noticed, and don't want to talk about these really, really hard issues. It's like one thing to watch a documentary about it happening over there, but to talk about it in our own lives and like is a different situation altogether, and people don't really know how to take care of each other. I'm really excited about Bread and Roses, and I know that they're doing a lot of work to try to, and I actually haven't been able to go to that because I'm too busy being a mom. But yeah, I think just setting up pure, like, I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to like move towards a group discussion, so we can probably end the video and Brittany can say whatever you want to your followers. What we do.
Well, that's it. We're done. Peace out.
So if people could like rearrange.